So some of you may recognize Allie Beth Stuckey from YouTube, Spotify, or even the Fox News Network. About a year and a half ago, she released this book titled You Are Not Enough, and That's Okay. To speak about her book, she appeared on Alyssa Childers' podcast in an episode titled How to Escape the Cult of Self-Affirmation. She claims that those engaging in the positive psychology technique known as self-affirmation are attempting to become their own gods. Her answer, of course, is become a child of the Christian God instead. In today's video, we're going to look at a few episodes of podcasts that Allie has been a participant in and just break down some of her ideology and what she thinks about positive self-affirmations and why she thinks they're negative. So first, let's look at a definition of positive self-affirmations. Put simply, they are positive phrases or statements used to challenge negative or unhelpful thoughts. Next, let's remind ourselves of some of the foundational tenets of self-affirmation theory by individuals who have done a lot of work in that area. Self-affirmation theory argues that maintaining self-identity is not about being exceptional, perfect, or excellent. Rather, we just need to be competent and adequate in different areas that we personally value in order to be moral, flexible, and good. Self-affirmation theory at heart is about variability and adaptability in one's own self-concept. For example, I should not think of myself as just a good student, because when I inevitably get bad grades, that's going to jeopardize my entire identity. Rather, I should identify as a hard-working student, an empathetic crisis counselor, and an open-minded family member. By recognizing my worth and value in other areas of my life, not only will I have a more beneficial outlook on my own self-concept, but probably one that's more accurate as well. So all this sounds like pretty good stuff. What is Allie's beef with self-affirmation theory? Let's take a look.
The reality is that if our confidence is placed in our own sufficiency, then we are constantly going to be disappointed. If our confidence is based on what we think about ourselves, our self-love, our self-sufficiency, it's going to be swinging like a pendulum. It's going to be going up and down on the waves of our emotions. But if our confidence comes from who Christ is, who is our sufficiency, who is our perfection, who is the embodiment of love, and who does not change, then our confidence will be steadfast.
And here we have Allie's biggest gripe with positive self-affirmation. It gives us an ability to achieve peace that she thinks is fake or temporary because it's not through God himself. She takes this position despite knowing that there are billions of people on this earth who have not gone through her God, that have lived peaceful and normal lives, and that people who aren't Christians are capable of living in peace. I think now is a good time to read the description of her book to get a little bit more of an idea of what she stands for. In this description, we see her say that we as humans are the problem, despite God, according to her belief, making us in this way. She also claims that in Christ, we can live a joyful life of relying on him for wisdom, satisfaction, and purpose. All three of those things. Let's continue with the podcast.
But if our confidence comes from who Christ is, who is our sufficiency, who is our perfection, who is the embodiment of love, and who does not change, then our confidence will be steadfast.
Love the point you just made about us putting our focus on Christ, who does not change.
There are 45,000 denominations of Christianity. Christianity has been used to support slavery, racism, misogyny, and prejudice against the mentally ill. Christ is not this stable figure that they claim. In reality, people project their own beliefs and ideas onto the figure of Christ and end up cherry-picking passages to support whatever they believe.
You're not enough to conquer your sin on your own. You're not enough to resist temptation on your own. You're not enough to come up with your own identity on your own.
So if you went to a therapist and the therapist told you that you were not capable of coming up with your own identity, imagine how you would feel. I mean, this is a ridiculous statement. Not only is it essentially meaningless because there's no evidence to support it, but it's also blind to the billions of people, again, who have perfectly fine identities without going through your God.
People like Brene Brown and
Yes.
other kind of influencers, they all have very similar self-empowerment messages. And people ask me all the time, how did this become so popular? Because it feels good. We are instinctively, I think, compelled to be our own gods and to self-worship. See, they have a different mentality than Christianity.
First, do not for 1 second believe that Allie is on the same level as a researcher such as Brene Brown. Brown has a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and a PhD, all in social work. She's an expert and researcher in this field. When we take a look at Allie's educational background, we see no formal training in psychology whatsoever. Rather, she has a bachelor's degree in communications from Furman. And she mentions this idea that we want to become our own God.
We are instinctively, I think, compelled to be our own gods and to self-worship.
She offers no support for this, no empirical support, but I don't really get the problem with this either. What does it mean to become your own God? Does it mean that you take control of your life, that you are in the driver's seat, that you have some autonomy? Are those really negative things? I think a better or more fleshed out definition of this in the podcast would be appreciated to get into the details about what that actually means.
Same lie that has been recycled and repackaged by these women who are saying if you just do these things, then you will have the power to basically be your own God. And the irony is that they are saying you're perfect the way you are, you're enough the way you are, you're empowered and fulfilled in yourself, but oh, by the way, you need to read my book to really get there. Oh, you need to take this personality test to really get there. You need to, do my entrepreneurial workbook to really get there. It sounds self-deprecating, but it's much more freeing to realize I don't have to rely on my sufficiency or the 10 motivating mantras that I repeat in the morning or reading some book to finally make me feel fulfilled.
So now these two statements here are completely ironic. She's saying that it's hypocritical for all these authors to say, you are perfect, you are capable, but also you need my book to achieve that. Allie, on the other hand, is suggesting something much more volatile and manipulative. She's saying something is wrong with you. You are broken. And then her solution is to sell you her book. And even better, it's to get you to read this other book, the Bible, and completely change your life to conform to it. So one of the absolute basic tenets of positive psychology, which it seems like she knows very little about, is to focus on the positives. That does not mean to neglect or completely believe that there are no negatives, but simply to focus your energy occasionally on the things that are going well in your life. Her perspective is that we should instead focus on the negatives, that we are broken, we are sinful, that we are in need of some peace out there to complete us. This is no different than saying the ideal body type is super thin or that the best hair color is blonde. It makes people feel that they're inadequate. It takes them down a peg. It brings them and compares them to this unrealistic standard. Allie knows that this is wrong, yet she still supports it as long as it conforms to her own religious belief. So a few months ago, Allie gave us an absolute gem of a podcast episode, and she starts it off actually with a very humble disclaimer about her lack of expertise in the field of psychology, which I will say is appreciated.
I'm not pretending to be a professional counselor or be a professional psychologist, but I think anyone with just a little common sense and from a little observation can tell you why these mental health numbers have increased so much over the past couple of years.
So the first part of this is good. She mentions that she doesn't have any formal training in mental health. Yeah, I'm on board with this statement here. This is looking good. Good start to the next episode. So at this point, you might be asking what gives me the right to comment on these things about mental health. And so I want to be transparent here and give you my background. I'm a clinical psychology master's student in the Columbia University school system. I have roughly 25 undergraduate credits in psychology, which is a little bit more than a minor, but not to the level of another major. So I'm technically a biology major. I worked in mental health care, and I'm currently a crisis counselor for the National Suicide Hotline. Now, I would be the first to admit that I'm not an expert in this field. I have a genuine interest and I want to pursue a professional career in mental health, but I'm not an expert. I have a personal interest specifically in positive psychology. I've taken courses and read books about this topic, and so I find myself qualified to speak on it, at least more so than Allie here. So right after a disclaimer, she brings up this completely ridiculous statement that I have to comment on.
Anyone with just a little common sense and from a little observation can tell you why these mental health numbers have increased.
Common sense and a little bit of research and observation are not enough to answer a question that psychologists have been asking for years. This is ridiculous, and really, to me, it's unaware. Where do people get this confidence that this common sense and a little bit of research can just replace an entire degree and professional experience in a certain field of study?
Again, I am not demonizing all professional mental health help. You guys know that. I've talked about that. I wrote about that in my book.
So she doesn't want to talk bad about mental health professionals. We can all agree with Allie here that this is not something that we have to do. But let's see what she says just about 10 seconds later, and I'm not kidding.
Why is it that so many of the therapists that you see on Instagram, that you see on social media, are literally insane. Like, why is that? Like, why do they seem like some of the most narcissistic and self-serving and unstable and like mean people out there?
So first she says she doesn't want to demonize mental health professionals, and then 5 seconds later she begins to demonize them. Just because you call yourself out at the beginning does not give you a pass to talk trash on people and demonize a profession.
A lot of them are liberal, first of all.
Let's focus in on the words that she's using. She calls social media psychologists unstable, insane, and narcissistic. In a video about mental health, this is just unacceptable. There are real people out there that are unstable. There are people out there who have personality disorders and are narcissistic. There are people out there that the public perceives as being insane. To use this terminology as an insult against somebody that you disagree with shows Allie's immaturity and just her all-around unawareness. She's unaware of even how to discuss mental health topics, and she's childish for letting her emotions get the best of her, resulting in an insult at the expense of others who are actually suffering from mental health disorders. Unsurprisingly, she has received a lot of backlash for the things that she has talked about, and psychologists even reached out to her and critiqued her book.
Left-wing therapist who sent me this mean message the other day calling me a POS. I'll just use that. And I'm like, oh, like this is the mental health professional that is helping other people relate to others in a healthy way and is trying to help other people be stable. And she's not stable because I don't have a single friend who would ever send a message like that to anyone that they disagree with.
So let me get this straight. Somebody called you a piece of shit for some stuff that was insensitive that you wrote, and they are insane because they had that response to your content. So what does that make you? 5 seconds ago, you called an entire profession unstable, insane, and narcissistic, which in my opinion is clearly worse than calling somebody a piece of shit.
I don't have a single friend who would ever send a message like that to anyone that they disagree with. I am not demonizing therapists that you see on Instagram are literally insane. Like some of the most narcissistic and self-serving and unstable and like mean people out there. I am not demonizing.
So honestly, I can go on for days about this, but I'm going to stop us here. But let's just reflect a little bit about this entire situation. So in conclusion, Allie is completely just making unfounded claims here. She has no evidence, no studies to support what it is that she is saying. If she wants to conduct studies and do research on how Christianity can help people fighting psychopathologies, then she should do that, not just sit here and tell everybody that they need to run to Jesus. It comes off as manipulative and ill-informed. The truth is, Christian-based counseling is not as effective as evidence-based counseling, and when it does work, it works for Christians. I urge people to stop forcing their beliefs on others, and now I get it. We are allowed to believe what we want. When your personal, unsubstantiated opinion is used to discredit an entire profession, it comes off as ignorant and brash. Now, don't get me wrong. There are many people who have seen success in biblically based counseling, and I'm happy for that. That is a positive. But just because it worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, or that should be the standard of mental health care. Psychotherapy is the most tailored mental or physical treatment you can receive. If somebody came to a therapist and they went to church regularly, they would not be met with disdain for their belief, unless, of course, their belief was causing them distress in their life. But it's not automatic that a counselor that is not a Christian is going to tell you to stop believing in God. If the individual's relationship with God was a positive in their life, then they would absolutely be encouraged to continue going to church, continue praying, continue reading their Bible. This idea that God and modern day therapy can't coexist is just ridiculous. If that religious belief is a problem, then it will be highlighted as a problem. But if it's a positive thing in your life, then nobody's going to mess with it. Nobody's going to try and deconvert you from Christianity. The hostile, immature, and insensitive comments made by Allie show her lack of knowledge on the topic of mental health. It shows that she doesn't even have the ability to talk about these topics in an open, caring, and healthy way. Allie has completely embarrassed herself, and comments like these in the future will be seen as completely unhelpful for society as a whole. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you on the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe, share, send it to Allie. Okay, JK. But peace out.